pumpkin rum cake with maple whipped cream. It starts with 3 cups of flour and 2 cups of sugar, and then just 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And that's it for the dry. I'll just give it a little stir. Okay, that's all mixed together. So that's the dry ingredients. Now I'll get started on the wet. I've got 1/2 cup of buttermilk, and I'll add 2 eggs and 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Now I'll add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Hey, I just measured vanilla for the first time in about 7 years. I usually just splash it in there. It's Thanksgiving, it's a special occasion. And then 1/2 teaspoon of maple extract. And then I'll just use a fork to whisk up the eggs. I love Thanksgiving anyway, but having a little Friendsgiving celebration on the side just adds to how much I love Thanksgiving. It's just great to get together with girlfriends every now and then. Now I'm gonna move over to the stove. I have a saucepan with 2 sticks of salted butter, and I'm gonna add a can of pumpkin puree. This is probably my favorite shortcut Thanksgiving ingredient. Now I wanna add to that pumpkin-y flavor, so I'm gonna add a couple of teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. How good is this gonna be? And I'll give this a stir while it starts to heat up. I think Friendsgivings are so much fun because you can have a little bit of fun with what you make. You don't have to stick to the traditional Thanksgiving dishes if you don't want to. Okay, that's all whisked together. So I've got a pot of water. It's just about to boil. And I'm gonna measure 3/4 of a cup. And pour it into the saucepan. So we really have 2 wet ingredients going on, the buttermilk mixture and the pumpkin mixture. Rum cakes always remind me of my mother-in-law, Nan. She made a rum cake around the holidays every year. That was the best thing I had ever tasted when she first made it for me. I have never gotten that cake out of my mind. So delicious. Okay, the pumpkin mixture is nice and smooth and very hot, so I'm gonna turn off the heat, and I'll put all of this together to make the cake batter. The first thing I like to do is pour in the pumpkin mixture. So I'll grab the buttermilk mixture. You just want to keep folding until you no longer see any hint of the flour. Now I've got a regular bundt pan, and I greased and floured it just to make sure that the cake doesn't stick. All right, so now that the batter's in the pan, the action moves to the oven. Baking first. The cake goes into a 350-degree oven for 45 minutes. Then I'll check that it's done by inserting a skewer in the center. Yep, that's good. Then I'll take it out and cool it on the counter in the pan. If you think this pumpkin cake looks good now, just wait till you see it when it's doused in a delicious rum syrup. That's what I'm gonna make now. I've got 2 sticks of salted butter, and I just melted them. And I'm adding a cup of sugar, and I'll add just a couple of tablespoons of water. The rum comes later. First, I'm gonna make the syrup, which is really easy to make. I'll stir this around. Okay, now I'm gonna raise the heat, and this needs to cook for about 3 minutes to thicken, so I'll see you on the other side. Okay, the syrup has been boiling away. So I'm turning the heat off before I add the most important ingredient, a whole cup of rum. This is actually spiced rum, and you want to pour it in slowly so that syrup mixture doesn't get too angry. You don't want to add the rum before the syrup cooks because a lot of that goodness would cook off, and you really want to have this pack a real rum punch. And then just a teaspoon of vanilla. All right, the rum syrup is ready. So now I'll get the cake ready. First thing I'll do is turn the cake out onto a rack. And I hope it came out. Ooh, it sounds promising. Get the rack down and take a look. Oh, that's when you're glad you have thoroughly greased and floured the pan. So I've got a wooden skewer, and I want the cake to be able to really soak up a lot of this syrup. So I'm just going all around the cake just to give that rum syrup plenty of places to go to. Okay, that looks great. Now, this is a cool trick. Rather than try to pour the syrup on the cake while it's on the rack, I'm gonna pour half of the syrup into the bundt pan, give or take. And then, you guessed it, I'm gonna put the cake back into the pan. Just wanna make sure I line up the grooves. And then, oh my gosh, that syrup is just completely enveloping the cake. Now we can't forget about the bottom of the cake. So you wanna do the same thing with the wooden skewer. And then the rest of the syrup gets poured on top. Okay, now the cake needs to soak up the rum, and that's gonna take an hour. Now, aside from actually eating the cake, turning it out onto the cake stand is the best part. So I'll turn it over, and hopefully all of that syrup has been soaked into the cake. You can't imagine how sticky and delicious this is. My friends are gonna love me this year. I cut everyone a generous slice. I mean, it's Thanksgiving after all. Then it was all about the cream, which is just a cup of heavy cream whipped with a teaspoon of maple syrup. And I finished it with a sprinkle of pumpkin pie spice for some Thanksgiving magic.